So when I submitted my topic, I was a bit nervous. I thought, oh God, how is this going to fit in, with what everybody's talking about, the policy. But I'm so pleasantly surprised. This morning, I feel like I do fit. And thinking about, our keynote, talking about aesthetics as strategies of interpretation of human relations and transactions, and talking about the aesthetics of everyday life, I really hope that you see that the music that these young women are creating is a part of that. And also thinking about rights and responsibilities of citizens, citizens' actions and ideas about what it means to be a modern woman. I hope that that comes through in the lyrics. And Jay's paper, the last paper, Paul's, on the engaged citizenship in education and sort of democratization, questioning whether democracy has been marginalized in education. I hope that you see in these lyrics, they're creating a space, a larger space for democracy and their voice. So how is that to kind of pull everybody together? Okay, pretty good. Thank you. Oh, thank you. How do I advance? Okay, so a little background on how this got to be more part of my research focus just this year, recently. Well, it comes actually from research I did as a MA student in linguistics. I looked at hip hop music, language, and localization. And I did a piece looking specifically at English and Arabic lyrics and wondering how is the form of music being localized in Egypt. And I was arguing that even though they're using English, a world language, which is kind of a dominant language, they were still employing some hip-hop forms, which I can go into later, but flipping the script and sort of speaking back to the English-speaking world, like speaking against the English-speaking world in English. So that's kind of where my whole background in the hip-hop studies and language comes from. More recently, I've been looking a bit at music and how artists have been creating more patriotic songs after the revolutions and uprisings that started in Tunisia in late 2010 and have been throughout the Arab world. Primarily, I've looked at music in Egypt to see how they're being uploaded online on YouTube and sort of being disseminated throughout the world, and people are commenting on this new form of music. That group there on the side is the Arabian Nights. And they were part of my first study. And so I just thought, they used a lot of English, so I just thought it was interesting that they're talking about Arab unity right there in English, Arab stand up, like sort of this idea of an Arab, pan-Arab imaginary, if you will. That was before all of the revolutions. So the music I'm looking at now, the women, or at least the one artist I'll show you today, she does all of her rapping in Arabic, and I think that's pretty cool because that shows that perhaps she hasn't studied outside the U.S. or outside of Egypt, and she's really trying to bring this form of music into the local. So I work here on campus in international studies, and I've done a lot of public engagement, and so I'm really interested in thinking about the Middle East, North Africa region and stereotypes that we have that are prominent in media about the region and women in the region. So I position myself as an inside outsider. You can tell me whether or not that's correct or not. And also just having lived and studied in Egypt and having personal connections to the region, that's where I draw my sort of knowledge to. So where does the research come in to play, or what does this have to do with education? Like my boss asked me yesterday when I asked to take off, for the day to present, and then she said, "What are you presenting on?" And I was like, "Oh, this Egyptian woman rapper," and I told her about the lyrics, and she's like, "Okay, and what does this have to do with education?" So I thought, this is really, we've got to be prepared for this. It's a really great question. I just found out about this book this week, I believe. It's Demetriadis and McCarthy, 2001, talks about the post-colonial aesthetic in contemporary schools and the importance of understanding that and bringing it into the curriculum, and thinking about post-colonial art as a site of knowledge production. So I'm thinking about hip hop music as a post-colonial US art form, and how that's been spread all over the world today. And how I think it's important for just considering the US, classrooms and teachers as we start to think about teaching more about the world and preparing students to be more globally minded, that teachers have an understanding of young people in these other parts of the world, and how young people are fashioning their identities. And for that matter, even teachers in the other parts of the world too can also maybe learn a bit about young people in their countries as well. So I think that I don't have to go on about just the enormous disconnect I think that there is with what happens in everyday world for young people, and then what happens in the classroom. There's just a big, a huge disconnect. So I think that learning about youth expression hopefully would help remedy that some. And I've looked at Stuart Hall's works a little bit as well to think about identity and how the post-colonial identity is situated in the colonial historical experience. Also, this text I just read a couple of months ago, and it's really influenced the way I've thought about doing social sciences and social science research and sort of the importance of social science research. It's the C.W. Mills, C. Wright Mills Sociological Imagination, and it, to me, really foregrounds, I think, why we do social sciences research. It's to look at, first of all, sort of understanding problems in society, but he says that this kind of research should always automatically look at the history and also personal life experiences, and sort of looking at the problems that intersect within the social structure of a history of a place and also one's lived experiences. And I think that's really fascinating. And so I'm thinking about that in terms of women's lives and their lived experiences and their practices of making music and self-expression. So let's go on. And then finally, also what I just learned about this week that I need to learn more about, so is this idea of global or hip-hop feminism. And I thought, and this comes out of a text by Morgan in 1999 called When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost. I love that. Okay, my life as hip-hop feminist. So I haven't gotten to read it yet. But in this idea of hip-hop feminism is just the questioning of hip-hop as a male space and exploring hip-hop as a worldview grounded in the experiences of communities of color. So I'm thinking about that as, again, being disseminated and projected all over the world. So if anyone here knows more about this line of research, I'd like to learn more about that. So just getting on to my questions about what I hope to be writing about. I haven't written much at all beyond what you see on the slides. It's just how is the music preserving, shaping, recording, transmitting public memory, and what are the spaces or images or ideas that are being favored or used in the music? How are women in the region, located in the region or maybe not located in the region, because what I'm going to be looking at is online, so they could be anywhere in the world talking about women's rights, but identifying with Middle East, North Africa region. How are they using music to give voice to issues that concern them? And what are their goals in making the music? Do they want to get a record deal? Probably not. Is it more of like personal development, or do they see it as activism? So those are just some, general questions. So let's look at our first, or the artist that I've given you the lyrics for. Okay, 5 minutes, great. So we're going to just probably play this song. There's a bit of an interview of her. Her name's Mayam Mahmoud, and she's from Egypt. She's an 18-year-old political sciences student in the university. She was a contestant on the Arabs Got Talent reality competition TV show in 2013. And she's the first, I think, female rap artist that's been on that show, and definitely the first female rap artist who wears a headscarf in Egypt. So that made a huge, people were just like, wow, she wears hijab and she's rapping too, whoa. And actually, I saw an interview about why she decided to audition, and she said, my brother raps, and when the day came to audition, my brother went to audition, and my dad came back to me and said, why didn't you go? And I just told him, no, that would be hard, the community, on society, and I don't want to get out there and do that. But her dad really encouraged her to do it, so that's why she did it. So I'm going to just start with the song that you've got the translation to, that she did in the semifinals round. So she didn't win, but she got pretty far to the semifinals. And I just want you to see her and read along with the music. It's called Ana Mish Cigara, which is I'm not a cigarette. I hope this works. Okay, I'm gonna stop it there because I like to listen to it more, but we're gonna stop just to look at the lyrics in English. I wanted you to see sort of the reaction of the judges too, and what they were, when she first performed, they were really kind of supportive, and I think they were pretty supportive of her all throughout, actually. Can I get back to the presentation? Oh, this one here, okay. Oh, okay, okay, so what this song is really dealing with is just what women in Egypt are facing on a daily basis, walking in the street and kind of being catcalled, and a lot of sexual harassment that can vary in degree from verbal or becomes physical as well. So she's saying, at the very beginning, she's just talking about, we need a law. There is a law, but it's not really a law that's enforced. If women go and report something to the police, a lot of times it's the police officer would tell them, well, you better just not say this out loud. People might question your character. So it always comes back onto her. So I want to point to a few places in the lyrics, because I think I'm 2 minutes now. The lyrics discuss problems in society using metaphors and sayings that are familiar in society. So just talking about the law against sexual harassment. Line 5 and 6, just the whole idea of the song is I'm not a cigarette, and that's something that it's a popular metaphor to say that you can't just, like a doormat, like we say, I'm not a doormat, So she's saying I'm not a cigarette. You can't just like smoke me and then put me out. You're not going to humiliate me. Another popular saying in 7 and 8 is that, a friend of mine told me this, that a woman, your wife is like a necktie. She'll strangle you. Maybe she strangles you, but she makes you look respectable to the rest of society. So this is the first thing that she said, 18 years old. Okay, and this is what she's saying. I'm not a necktie that strangles you and makes you respectable. And anyway, if you're not respectable in the first place, why would I be with you? So she's just like, I'm not with a respectable man. She also talks about, and there's a couple other examples there, just the tensions and contradictions that society places on women and the role of women and how to act around men. This is in, 25, she's saying your life is divided between sacrifice and exploitation. They marry you off. 32 actually. She's talking about if you're social and if you're talkative a lot, then you're considered to be easy. But the line right before that, she says, even if you are respectable and quiet, then you're a loser and you're not going to get a mate, or you won't find a husband. So you have to kind of flirt with men underhandedly. This is how my friend was describing it. I wish I had more time to talk about the lyrics, but yeah. So it's kind of one other 21 is another real favorite lyric that I saw that I liked. She's saying, speak up, your voice has been loud since the past. Women have always been involved in the struggle and the revolutionary struggle in Egypt, and my friend was telling me you know, since 1919 in the revolutionary struggle, women have been there. So it's not like this isn't a new thing. You know, she's saying women have always been there. One thing that I was just, it was interesting to me that the lyrics don't deal at all with class, social class at all, but it's just sort of a common unifying, you know, as women, we need to stand up. We can do this. We have, the lyrics are very powerful, but at the risk of going over everybody else's time, I think I'm just gonna to end with that, the lyrics there. So, oh, those are my references. So yeah, please, I'm interested in questions or feedback, so that I'm gonna end with that for now. Thank you very much. Here's references. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Questions?
Yeah, so much. Yeah, great.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you brought, you raised attention about women rights in Arab world, because, you know, coming from an Arab country, from Palestine, I also seen, you know, lots of struggles, but women always try to be silent and not talk. So this is really a good example that we should stand up, we should show our right. And actually it reminds me of two projects I've done before. Yeah. One of them was, you know, analyzing the Palestinian curriculum, and was really, you know, saddened me that the women representation in the curriculum, it wasn't, you know, presented at the same level as the women. So they were always, you know, present men as more educated than women, and, you know, so this is also kind of, you know, stereotypes in curriculum, stereotype in people identity, how they believe. So it's really, really good example. Yeah. Another example, like I remember I did a project also last year, and this project, I don't know, I feel like more comfortable saying it. Anyway, so I also did a project last year. It's also existed not only in the Arab country, but also in the Arab community who lives here. Because a friend of mine, like I was doing some interview with a friend, and she was really struggling from the Arab community here because she's young and she is not married, and she came here to continue her studies. So they were looking at her, oh, how come like you're here alone without, you know, sacrificing your marriage? You could, you know, you have to get married. And she had lots of struggles with also, you know, Arab people and Arab, you know, female friends and stuff. So I really appreciate, you know, bringing up this issue.
Thank
and
you.
I hope, you know, things can be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. I think I wanted to respond to some of the questions you asked about feminism and hip hop.
Right.
Well, so in thinking about, well, actually, before I even talk about feminism and hip hop, there's been a lot of work done on Palestinian hip hop and indigenous hip hop and the reliance on Tupac Shakur as you know, as a figure, and his mother's his aunt Asada Shakur's, you know, position in relation to the state. So thinking about what does it mean to be part of the state or not part of the state, and specifically with Palestine in relationship to Israel. And then in terms of black feminists who are doing hip hop feminism, I think more than John Morgan's work, I think that Trisha Rose's Black Noise, or Imani Perry's actually Prophets of the Hood, but more specifically, I think, More Beautiful, More Terrible, which is an echo of James Baldwin's great kind of quote about how, you know, if you talk about race, there's endless possibilities, and so it is more beautiful, but it also shows you how much more terrible it is. And those, I think, Prophets of the Hood and More Beautiful and More Terrible kind of talk about the cultural aspects, and so it talks about how then hip-hop moves from being a musical entity, but a culture. So I hope
that's Perry? Perry?
Imani Perry, yes. And she should be here in the fall. We're trying, GWS is trying to get her to come.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
I like your paper very much. I just had two things. I did a similar a research project, not similar, but it's about African American females in hip hop.
Oh, great. Okay.
So I found your paper to be very interesting and relevant, especially to my interest. I guess one source that maybe might be helpful for you, at least coming from an African American perspective, but the theoretical work might extend over is Patricia Hill Collins' work. And
Okay.
you might find a lot of sources from her that extend and help you go deeper into the analysis.
Okay.
And a problem that I had with my own paper, and I'm curious how you're going to
Yeah.
think about this, is how do you take this culturally relevant pedagogy, hip hop or critical pedagogy, beyond just the development of consciousness of these Arab women towards actually transformative actions? Because that's a lot of questions I had, and I feel like theoretically that's something we have to deal with, because hip hop is really conscious raising, but how can we actually get hip hop to be beyond just conscious raising? And I'm curious, how are you thinking about that? Because I don't have an answer yet.
Well, that's a great question. I guess I just think about how I define transformation and timing, and like, to me, that is transformative. Just her doing that, and I mean, I don't. Honestly, it's. But being visual, I think, and having a space created where you can express something, and the possibilities are pretty endless of who can see that. So are you asking, like, transformation, laws that really do change, and people are in that way, you mean? Change laws.
McCarthy's work really about aesthetic, that there's one way maybe of hearing about transformation.
Right.
You change the symbolic representation.
Right.
Also in terms of maybe structural issues, political issues as well. I was curious to see how you were going to take it.
Yeah, that's a great question. But I do think of transformation in terms of representation and just having a voice. To me, that's extremely powerful. I think transformation on the ground takes years and generations. But thank you. I should work that in the paper or work it out. Yeah. Anybody else?